that this episode is for you. This is your family, your community. We are together, and it begins now. Welcome to Tales of the Night. Good afternoon. I'm writing to you from Tijuana. I would like to tell you an anecdote that happened to me about 15 years ago approximately. I've only told it to friends and family, but in these months I've been watching your channel so much that I decided to write to you. I was 16 years old and in high school when all this happened. That day I was with my friends Luis and Renee, walking along the train tracks at the dam in Tijuana, through that long tunnel that leads to a small stream. According to Renee, the place was very beautiful there, and we wanted to see it. We arrived around 3 in the afternoon. It was a bit cold, but nothing strange. There was no fog or anything. It was the most normal afternoon. A bit gray, but normal. We stayed there for a good while and time got away from us. We were comfortable and relaxed. Not even the police go down to those parts. When we decided to head back, it was around 8 at night. And as soon as we started walking back toward the tunnel, we realized that a very heavy fog was coming. It came out of nowhere, thick and silent. And from there, everything felt strange. As we moved forward, we started to hear as if someone was coming behind us. Murmurs. At times it sounded like someone was coming praying. At times, like they were laughing. Hallowed be thy name. We kept walking, and when we entered the tunnel, we looked back. We wanted to see the fog that was coming behind us. It looked like a cloud sticking to the ground. It looked like waves of fog that suddenly let you see farther. And suddenly nothing. And between those waves, through the fog, we saw something. Someone who seemed to be hurrying to catch up with us. It looked like a lady, like a grandmother, with her worn clothes, almost torn, hanging off her. When we paid attention, we noticed something, and maybe it was that the thick fog at that height. But you couldn't see the lady's feet. Without moving her body, it seemed like she was floating. As she got closer, we realized that she was the one who was praying and that at times she was laughing. She was coming straight toward us, very slowly, but without stopping. And when we had her about 2 meters away, it was as if we received an electric shock, as if suddenly our legs responded and we started running. Although we were running as fast as we could in the tunnel, we felt like she was coming right behind us. We heard her close, but none of us dared to turn around. Imagine doing it and having confirmed that she was coming behind us floating. We no longer heard laughter or prayers. Nothing. We came out of the tunnel and kept running until our legs no longer responded, and we stopped when we reached the booth of a factory. As soon as we crossed to where the light was, we turned around and there was nothing behind us anymore. No laughter, no prayers, nothing. Luis's parents came for us and took us all to our houses. I got in the car, but I couldn't stop feeling like she was still coming behind us. I don't know. I felt like something I couldn't see was coming very close, something that I imagined was still floating. And the thing is, I closed my eyes. Community, even after so much time, and that is the image that comes to my head. That following week, I was afraid even to go to school. I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to go anywhere. But the worst came later. The following weeks, I started dreaming about her. Very real, as if I had her in front of me. More real than any other dream I've had. And at night, I felt like someone was watching me from the darkness of my room, from a corner that is particularly darker than the rest of the room. It got to a point where I was already panicking at night. I couldn't sleep, and every day I felt more tired and without energy. My aunt was the one who realized that something wasn't right and took me to church. I asked the Father for a blessing and for him to pray for me. He asked for a blessing for my house and my family. It wasn't from one day to the next, but little by little I started to feel peace again in my head, as if there was no longer something leaning on me. It was something I will never forget, and I never went back to that place. I did nothing near the dam. Please, never go down to the train tunnel. Hello, Uriel. I want to send you my little story. I love your show very much. I'm from Guadalajara, Jalisco, and I've always had the sensitivity to see things that aren't on this plane. That's why I've always been very careful with these topics. What I'm going to tell you starts this year in July, with 3 friends. I went to the Colonos forest. It was one of my friend's birthday, and we decided to go for a walk for a while. We arrived at the Barranco's house and sat down to chat. A normal teenage conversation. I already felt a very strange vibe there, but I didn't say anything. Sometimes I feel that, but then it goes away on its own. At that moment, my friend saw a doll near the path and wanted to go toward it. I followed him without knowing why, although I was already tired and wanted to go back for our things. When we went up, the vibe felt even heavier. When we reached the point where the doll was, we didn't see it anymore. But it had appeared in another place closer to the ravine. My friend wanted to keep getting closer, even go down, but I pulled him because I felt that something wasn't right. I felt weak, dizzy, very bad inside. As best I could, I pulled him away from there. I don't remember with what excuse. Then we went to eat and chat with his uncles and parents. His dad took us to a cave, and those who are from Guadalajara know that those caves are already closed because they were used for witchcraft and other things. Even so, as best he could, he lied to us, and we crossed it. The vibe was horrible, very strong. You don't have to have any special sensitivity to feel something like that. I left with a pain in my back that only comes when a place has bad energies. That night, when I was bathing, I realized that I had scratches in places that were difficult to reach, places where I couldn't have made them while walking, even if I had gotten into branches. The months passed and I started to feel very strange. I fell into a very strange illness. I stopped eating. I slept all day. I felt dead. My mom took me to the doctor, and I ended up in the hospital. I was paler than normal. The diagnosis was officially salmonellosis, but a doctor in confidence told my mom that he really wasn't sure what I had. One of those nights in the hospital, I saw a woman in black pass several times through the door of my room when they left it open. I also started having very strange dreams. In one of them, I was at my grandmother Elvira's house, and that same woman grabbed my arm with her cold hands. She told me, "We have to go. I have to take you." She pulled me toward the exit, and I remember how my grandmother Elvira held me back saying, "You can't take her. She's not leaving yet," and I would wake up with a fever. They discharged me because supposedly I was better. I was eating and I wasn't sleeping so much anymore. My mom says I was on the verge of death, but I don't remember the illness. I don't remember being that bad. Last week we went back to the Colonos. The same friends from that time wanted to go see the same cave, and I was embarrassed to say no. So I followed them cautiously, keeping my precautions, but I couldn't go back in. I sat down to wait for them until I saw them come back running. Out of curiosity, I stayed to see what happened in the cave. In the darkness behind my friends, I thought I saw the woman from the hospital. The one who passed by my room. The one I dream about at my grandmother's house. Behind her, I saw another figure sitting, but I couldn't make it out. When my friends passed running by my side, I tried to get up quickly, and when I leaned on the ground, when I looked down, I noticed next to my feet a bracelet on the ground, a thread bracelet that I had lost a long time ago. It was alone, dirty but complete, and instinctively I picked it up, and as soon as I had it in my hand, I was invaded by a horrible fear. I felt as if that woman was right behind me, and I ran, of course. At first I wasn't sure if it was the same bracelet, but when I checked it with time at home, there was no doubt. When I told my friend, he told me something similar, that when I was sick he had seen me standing in his yard. but when he went out to see me, I wasn't there anymore. He only found a hair tie with a thread and a medal that I had lost months ago. The truth is, I don't know what to think. I had already had brushes with things like this, but never one so strong. Even today, I see shadows and hear things. My mom says it's because I was on the verge of death, and I sometimes think I didn't survive completely because since then I feel empty, as if a part of me had died. I'm encouraged to share this because I don't have anyone else to tell it to, someone who will believe me, and also, in case someone can help me with advice. Maybe for others this story isn't that strong, but for me, who has lived it, who continues to live it, yes, it is. Thank you for letting me share it. Hello everyone. Today is my last day of vacation, and I've been listening to Tales of the Night every day. In fact, I already finished the entire collection of horror story baskets. A while ago, I had heard some of the stories they share here, and they always seemed very interesting to me, but I hadn't had time to listen to them completely. Taking advantage of the calm of this day, I want to share with you something that happened to my family, and that to this day we still remember. When I was about 6 years old, I started seeing a little girl. I never saw her head on, only out of the corner of my eye. Sometimes I would barely see the top of her head peeking out. Even so, there was one occasion that marked me very much. I was in the kitchen, a kitchen that no longer exists today, helping to prepare the food. We had a large glass screen door, and outside even a washing machine, one of those round, very simple ones. I was always fearful, and that day I was completely alone because my parents had gone out. When I turned toward the screen door, the girl was hanging from the washing machine, peeking out to see me as if playing. I remember perfectly the movement of her hair as she leaned over, and her smile was an impossible smile to forget. My grandmother already knew that I sometimes saw that girl, and had advised me that if something scared me, I should close my eyes tightly and think about not letting my imagination fly. And she told me that when I opened them, there would be nothing there anymore. So that's what I did, and I didn't open my eyes until my mom came back from shopping and the girl was no longer there. I saw her on more occasions, but that was the only time I could see her face. Other things also happened. I, for example, had a doll that said phrases when you pressed her belly, and out of nowhere, at night it started to activate on its own. When my parents and I were asleep, it was as if someone was pressing it or playing with it, and it happened so much that my parents ended up taking out the batteries. Years passed. I remember very well that when I was about 10, one afternoon I heard my mom scream, "Hey, silly, you scared me." And then she came into my room laughing, but when she saw me lying down, her expression changed. She asked me if I had just scared her, and I told her no, that I hadn't left the room. She got very scared because that same week she had commented to my dad that she was never scared, that she could be alone, as if nothing, with music and in the darkness, no problem. But that afternoon, when passing by a small and elevated bathroom window that we had before, she saw the top of the girl's head and some little arms that rose up to go, "Boo!" She thought it was me until she found me lying in my room. It was then that my parents told me that when I was younger, my dad also saw the girl peeking through that same window where they scared my mom. They even told me that on occasion she would talk to my dad when he was alone at home. Once a neighbor came to knock on the door and heard clearly a girl's voice telling him, "There's no one here." He thought it was me and even responded to her, but my parents swore to him that I wasn't in the house. The neighbor turned pale with fright. There were several more experiences, but these are the strongest. And well, the last one happened when I was staying to sleep at an aunt's house. My parents told me that that morning they saw the girl's little head peeking at the window again. The curtain was even slightly raised. My dad then spoke to her as if she were a real girl and told her that that was not her home, that she didn't belong to our family, and that she should leave because she had already scared Mom and me, that she was bad for scaring us. Maybe that worked because after that day she never appeared again. I don't know if it's related, but before I started seeing this girl, my parents took me to the convent of Culiacan. I was playing ahead of them, and just as I turned a corner, I saw a kind of white cloth flying. I saw a little white cloth dragging. I ran thinking it was a bride taking pictures, as sometimes happened in a church near my house. But when I turned the corner, there was no one. Time later in my house, I saw that white cloth again through the glass screen door, dragging, moving away from my sight, as if someone was hiding. I got scared. I got so scared that I started crying until my dad arrived. I don't know if that really is related, but recently a video of the former convent of Culiacan came up, and when I read the comments I saw that many people have had paranormal experiences there. That precisely made me reconnect the memories, and made me think that maybe somehow we brought the presence of the girl to our house from that place. I hope you liked my story. I love listening to the stories that all of you share here. I send you my best wishes and good vibes to everyone. Hello Uriel, good evening and a hug to the whole community. Name is Uriel, just like you. I've already sent you 2 or 3 stories. In fact, you published one of mine in stories number 35. That was a while ago. Currently, I'm a store manager in one of the largest chains in the country. To put it in context, the store where I work is located in a relatively new plaza built about 3 years ago approximately. In that plaza, there's also a Guadalajara pharmacy, a grocery store, and a laboratory. But before the plaza existed, that land was an abandoned movie theater, completely in ruins. When I worked at a restaurant, I sometimes helped the delivery guy deliver orders, and one of the most regular customers was the security guard of that old movie theater. He always ordered something on weekends, but every time I went to take his order, I found him outside, on the street. One day I asked him why he was never inside, and he told me it was because they scared him, that he didn't like being there. Years later, by twists of fate, I started working in that same plaza, in the butcher shop. I entered as a floor salesperson, and over time they gave me the management position. From the first day, I noticed sounds out of the ordinary. Doors that closed on their own, water faucets that opened, refrigeration chamber doors that appeared open. That kind of thing happened all the time. But when they gave me the management position, and I started staying alone for 2.5 months, the strongest things started to happen. It wasn't just noises anymore. Words without sense were heard in the empty aisles. Footsteps, murmurs. The activity became clearer and more constant. Even some customers saw things or heard noises from the interior. It was so strong that 2 customers gave me holy water to sprinkle the store because they themselves were witnesses to what was happening there. They saw shadows moving in aisles where there was no one. And even once a customer saw a 20-liter jug shoot out of the dispenser. Sometimes our cell boss asks us for photographs of the store, of certain specific places on different dates. I took photos, hundreds of them. I don't know, maybe it's my imagination, but I feel like something can be seen. And things keep happening. Now I have a floor salesperson, and no one likes to stay after closing. But I have to stay for the closing meeting, and to do the administrative tasks. So that entity that has already let itself be seen twice, and I coexist daily. My co-worker has been locked alone in the machine room, and also in the bathroom. Sometimes we arrive and find everything a mess when the cleaning is done at the end and beginning of the day. I've tried to communicate with her with white noise to know what she wants, but she doesn't respond to me. She only manifests when she wants, and it would seem that she even likes to play pranks. I'm sending you the photos then, if you want. Show them to the community. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe someone else sees the same thing I do. Very good evening, Tales of the Night Team and podcast listeners. My name is Damian, and I recently turned 18. Today I will tell you what my family and I lived through some years ago. I will avoid mentioning the names of my relatives and the exact places where it all happened. I'll only say it was in Honduras. Before starting, I'll clarify something. My mother, since she was a child, has said she can see things that most people can't. She's super sensitive to the paranormal and tells several experiences she had when she was little. And sorry in advance if I make mistakes writing. I'm new at this. You see, many years ago, when I was 8 or 9, my family, my dad, my mom and I, moved to a somewhat large house for the 3 of us. Right at that time, my aunt had been asked to leave the house where she lived and had nowhere to go. So we accepted for her to move in with us, along with my 2 cousins, who were also small like me. They were going to split the expenses, rent, water, electricity, and such. From the little I remember, the house was pale pink. It was quite large, and the most impressive thing was the enormous backyard full of guava, papaya, and other fruit trees. The owner had also planted banana or plantain plants, as they say, totally, forming almost a hallway because they were planted on both sides. There we played, my cousins and I, almost all day. My aunt worked and my dad too. The only one who stayed with us was my mom. She let us play as long as we cleaned up the mess when we finished. Nearby the house lived another aunt, my mom's cousin, and her children also came to play with us, or we went to their house. They were good times. I particularly remember one afternoon, when we had been living there for 2 months. There were about 10 children playing inside the house. My mom was painting one of her paintings, calm, not paying too much attention to us, when suddenly my older cousin approached scared and told her, "Auntie, look at the chair." He was referring to a metal rocking chair that was mine. The chair was moving on its own. I know many might say it's a rocking chair, but the strange thing was that there were no open windows or any air current. Also, according to my mom, at first it was barely moving a little. But when she started looking at it, it started rocking with force, as if a child were sitting there playing. My mother, to prevent the rest of us from getting scared, tried to distract us, telling us to go out to the yard. But another cousin shouted that the chair was moving on its own, and automatically we all got scared. Mom calmed the uproar as best she could, sent my cousins to their house and let us go out to the yard. Then she put away the chair in a place where we couldn't see it. After that, everything went back to normal for a few weeks. One early morning, while I was sleeping next to my parents, I woke up because I felt movement on the bed, as if someone heavy had gotten on the side where I was sleeping. There wasn't enough space because I was small. I vaguely remember the scene. My parents were sleeping soundly. I closed my eyes again, and then I felt a pair of large hands grab my feet, pull me as if they wanted to take me out of the bed. I opened my eyes, but there was no one. Obviously, I got very scared and started crying. This woke up my mom, who hugged me and tried to calm me down. My dad also woke up, but annoyed, saying it was my imagination and that my mom should stop watching horror movies while I was present. He said that was what was affecting me, and he just went back to sleep angry. My mom arranged me in the middle of both of them so I would feel safer. Later, when I fell asleep, she herself says that she could feel that someone else was in the room, and so she addressed whatever was there. "Let this be the last time you scare or touch my son. I don't want to see you anymore in this house. Get out." She says she did it because when she was a child, her grandmother, my great-grandmother, taught her that when she saw ugly things, she should confront them with courage, talk to them with authority, even insult them if necessary. According to my great-grandmother, that scared away the bad spirits, that you shouldn't show them fear. But from that night on, I stopped sleeping well. I started having horrible nightmares. And in all of them a boy appeared, not as the protagonist. He just peeked out from some corner or was simply standing at some point. I ignored him, but he was always there. That boy would be about 7 or 8 years old. He was pale with black straight hair, cut like a bowl. He was missing some teeth. He wore a red shirt with horizontal white stripes. I would wake up terrified. I would close my eyes tightly and curl my legs in a fetal position because I was afraid that something would grab my feet again. My mother also started suffering from sleep paralysis. She would open her eyes in the early morning and see a very tall male figure, watching them from the darkness. It was a young man, or at least not that old. But she could never see his face completely. He was just there standing, without moving. As the weeks passed, that man was getting closer and closer to the bed. Each night he was closer. Until one early morning, my mom opened her eyes and saw him with his face centimeters from hers. He was hunched over because he was very tall and Mom couldn't move, and that man was looking at her with his eyes wide open. She says he had blood on his face and clothes. A split lip and one of his eyes was dripping blood. He didn't speak, didn't move. He was just there, staring at her for a long time. And then he disappeared as if nothing. This time she did wake up my dad, who accompanied her to the kitchen to take a pill so she could sleep. My aunt also told things. At night lying down, she heard a deep laugh, like a growl, something impossible to describe, but that she assures was not human. She prayed and prayed until the laughter faded. My cousin, that aunt's oldest daughter, began to say that she saw a boy who followed her all over the house and yard, that he seemed friendly, that he invited her to play. My aunt always told her to ignore him and told my mom about it. She said that was too much. She decided then to investigate the history of the house. Neighbors told her that before being for rent, this place had been a cantina, a brothel where dangerous people frequented, that there had been fights, murders, and all kinds of horrible things there. Eventually, the place was shut down due to fines and lawsuits. Finally, they told her that the former owner of the establishment lived a few blocks away, and my mom talked to her. And, well, both of them, my mom and my aunt, for some reason, started looking for help in churches. And, well, community, I feel like this message is already getting too long, so I'll leave it for now up to here. Soon I'll share with you the other parts of my story, because I think what we lived in that house was extensive. There was even an exorcism inside it to try to calm all the energies that remained there. But well, for now I wish you good night, and be careful with the places where you decide to live, because you never know when you arrive at one that can change your life forever. Thank you for continuing here, community. Please, leave us a comment with your opinions about today's stories. It feeds us a lot to read them, and if you're in a good mood, very good mood, well, a thumbs up. A 5-star rating or whatever is done on the platform where you listen to us so that the algorithm treats us well. I like to leave you this break to breathe a little before the last stories, especially when a strong one is coming. And this is the case because we're going to talk about cults, and we're going to go again all the way to Querétaro. Hello, Tales of the Night community. Uriel asked the people from Querétaro if we have stories related to cults to share them. And I have one that happened to my grandmother at the end of the 1970s. She from a very young age came to work in the center of Querétaro City. She came from a community called Ceja de Bravo in the municipality of Huimilpan. There weren't many work opportunities there, and she had to leave. My grandmother didn't know how to read or write, but she was excellent at household chores, so she quickly got work with the wealthiest families in the city. She came to work with people, the grandchildren of the Alcocer family, the Ruiz family. She lasted many years working as a domestic employee, since she was single, already married. Even when she had children, she continued doing this work. Over time, she became someone trustworthy. Her employers in turn recommended her to friends and family so they would also hire her. Fortunately, work never lacked. She was doing very well, but one day something happened that took her away from this activity. Something that caused her a lot of fear. Her work area was near Plaza de Armas. Many neighbors knew her and greeted her, and although she didn't work with them, they gave her clothes and toys for her children. One day, a lady, one of so many who spoke to her, and whose name and surname I'm going to keep to myself, told her to help with the household chores in her house. My grandmother no longer had space for more work, but since the lady had been very kind to her, she felt committed and accepted. She told her that she could only on Thursdays, which was when she had the day off. The lady said yes, but earnestly asked her to finish all the household chores before 5 in the afternoon, that she couldn't stay even 1 minute longer, that if she didn't manage to finish it was preferable to leave it like that and come back another day to conclude. My grandmother found the request curious, but thought it was something unimportant. At the end of the day, they were going to pay her very well, and although the house was huge, she thought that time was enough to finish the chores without setbacks. The first Thursday she went, they pointed out the activities she had to do. Sweep, mop, dust, make the bedrooms, both the main one and that of the 2 children. The only instruction the owner of the house gave was that there was a room at the back that was strictly forbidden to pass through. No one could enter. My grandmother said that generally the lady had a very kind demeanor, but when she gave that order, her tone changed to a very dry one, and her face looked completely serious, expressionless. But my grandmother likewise didn't give it importance. She knew that people with money are sometimes very delicate. When she was working there, one day the oldest boy of the house asked her if she knew why she couldn't enter that room. My grandmother shook her head, and the boy, almost whispering so they wouldn't hear him, told her it was because his parents received some special visitors there and they didn't let him in either because he was still too little, but he also didn't really want to go in because that room always smelled bad. She thought the boy was just playing with her, so she didn't pay attention to him. The weeks passed and everything was going normally in her regular work. Likewise, she went every Thursday to clean those other people's house. She left punctually before 5 and had never noticed anything strange. She was even starting to grow fond of the family. But that Thursday arrived when everything went wrong. In the morning, she had been late to start her chores. She didn't wake up on time. The bus that took her downtown didn't pass and she had to go walking. That's why she arrived quite late. The lady of the house was pressuring her to finish before the agreed time, which she managed despite the setbacks. After such a hectic day, my grandmother is heading home and already at the bus stop. She remembered that she had forgotten her wallet at the employer's house. She thought about walking and coming back the next day, but she needed the money she had there to buy dinner. She thought she would go quickly. There would be no problem. For once, nothing would happen. She hurried to return to the house, and when she arrived, it was totally silent. She discreetly rang the bell that functioned as a doorbell. She was embarrassed to cause inconvenience, but no one opened. It should be noted that the house has a service entrance on the side that led right to the kitchen, and that was also the exit of the property's parking lot. That's why it was easy for her to enter quickly, hoping they wouldn't see her. After all, taking her wallet wouldn't take more than a few seconds. That's what she thought. She entered stealthily, found her wallet, and when she was about to leave the kitchen, she heard noises behind. Scared, she turned around and realized it was one of the family's children. She stared at him and let out nervously because the boy was wearing a costume. My grandmother asked him, "Hello, you. Why are you dressed like that? It looks like you're going to the procession of silence." She was referring to the clothing used in that religious celebration in Querétaro every Good Friday, which consists of a tunic and a caparot hood. The strange thing is that despite having always been very giggly with her, at that moment the boy didn't even flinch at what my grandmother told him. She then said goodbye, told him she had only come back for her wallet, but that she was leaving now. Just as she was leaving through the service door, as she was crossing through the parking lot, she turned and noticed that the family was getting into their car, all dressed the same as the boy, with tunics that only varied in color. The children in white, the adults in black. They were carrying the caparot hoods in their hands, as if they were going to put them on later. When the gentlemen noticed my grandmother's presence, they looked at each other totally disconcerted, as if they couldn't believe she was there. And the lady, with a very angry shout, told her, "I told you not to be here after 5. Then the husband ran desperately toward my grandmother, as if to try to grab her. Fortunately, she was already very close to the exit and managed to get out before being reached. She thought the man would try to follow her to the street, but he didn't. He stayed inside his property. My grandmother, scared, went running toward the bus stop that was on Zaragoza Avenue, but something in her instinct let her know that maybe they would look for her, that it would be best to go into other streets that weren't part of her usual route. She lived in the Hercules neighborhood, so she walked toward the arches and from there took the bus that left her at her house. On the way, she kept thinking about why her employers got so angry that she had seen them dressed like that. If it was something from the church, well, they wouldn't have to hide it. She couldn't understand it, so she hoped my grandfather would arrive so she could tell him. He was a judicial police officer. He listened attentively to her whole story, and when she finished, he told her, "Don't get into trouble. Those people are dangerous. A lot of money, a lot of power. It's known that they do strange things, that even people from the government itself are involved in it. That's where God comes in. They make pacts, sacrifices with who knows who so that their business goes well. Why do you think they're more and more rich? Those people are better to have far away. It's well known that they bring young people from the mountains, and their families will never see them again. And we as police, if we know or find out about something, we have to keep quiet and do nothing because we run the risk, not of being fired, but of being killed. So woe to you if you go around gossiping saying what you saw. You're going to put everyone at risk. Now, better go sell tamales or any damn thing. But I don't want to see you around there anymore getting into those houses." My grandmother was scared for a long time, but for her good fortune in those times, it wasn't customary to ask for documents to hire domestic service. Everything was by recommendation. My grandmother hadn't given any details, only her first name. They didn't know well where she lived or what her husband's name was, what he did for a living, so she thought they would never find her even if they tried. Or that's what she wanted to believe, to live peacefully. She told me that story when many years had already passed. She always said that St. James and the Virgin of the Immaculate Conception had saved her that day, because she doesn't know what would have happened to her if on that occasion they had reached her and hadn't let her leave. Hello, Luis. My name is Enrique, and I've been your fan for 2 years. I want to share with you one of several stories that have happened to me, as well as my family. We are originally from the state of Tlaxcala, from a municipality called Tlatelolco. This story is about my mom, and I must emphasize that although she is very incredulous, she told me about this type of thing, even though she feels there must be some explanation for what happened. A while ago, my mom and her sister, my aunt, went to swimming at the State Polysportive Center of Tlaxcala. To get to their classes, the journey by public transportation took them an hour and a half. Normally, they went to the 6 in the evening schedule and left at 7. 1 hour of practice, and they did it 3 times a week. On one occasion, they were a bit later and didn't catch the collective, so they had to wait about 20 minutes for another one to pass. It dropped them off at the entrance of the town on a street that was still dirt and that later became a path. They took that path and started walking, chatting about the practice in school. Beyond the train tracks, there is a small church, some little stores, a mill, and as always, they greeted the people who were there. They continued on their way. They still had about 20 minutes to walk until they reached their house, between tall cornfields and very few houses around. In one of those houses lived a man they called Conrabia, who was my grandfather's compadre and had the reputation of never working at anything, but he always had money and animals, which he would sell. Sometimes he would appear injured, and the people of the town said that he was a nagual, that they would hurt him when they discovered him stealing animals in the form of a beast. As my mom and my aunt moved forward, the 3 men they had greeted earlier began to follow them. They walked faster, and the men also began to run. And my mom told my aunt that they should separate, thinking that this way at least one of them would be safe. But at that moment, just as they were passing in front of the man's house, from between the cornfield came a dog. It was not a common dog. It was larger, even larger than a Great Dane. It was black, with a fierce appearance, brave, as if you could feel it in the air. It positioned itself between my mom and my aunt, as if protecting them, showing its teeth to the 3 subjects who were coming behind them. The men stopped dead in their tracks, and without saying anything, they ran off in the opposite direction. The animal, without turning to look at them, began to walk beside them. My mom says that she had never seen it before. It did not seem to have an owner, but it looked well fed. When they reached the street where their house was, the animal separated from them and disappeared into the darkness. Shortly afterward, during the town fair, the man con rabia approached my grandfather and told him, "Compadre, do not let the girls walk around at night. I will not always be there to protect them." My grandfather was left speechless. He froze, thinking, how did that man know what happened to them? And that was when my family confirmed that the man was the Nagual. And how could you not believe it if he is still alive? This happened 26 years ago, and the man looks young and strong. He is very dark-skinned, with gray hair and blue eyes, almost turquoise in color. He is thin, with a mustache, and when he looks at you, you feel a heavy gaze, as if it goes right through you. Many stories are still told about him in the town. Does he have a family? Yes. But apparently none of his children do the same thing as the man. I send you greetings, Uriel, and I hope you will make me part of this community. Have a very good night.